there was a really interesting structure you laid out about going from freemium to enterprise and the steps you take in order to do that. One of the first steps you talked about in thinking about freemium was the right audience and the right product category. Can you explain those two concepts and how people should think about that?
Yeah, the most freemium products start this way. They come out of Y Combinator. Something didn't work. A week before demo day, they pivot and they're like figuring something that works. They copy and paste in the Stripe snippet. They get everybody else in the same Y Combinator class to buy. It's like this thing, and then and then the demo goes well, and everyone's like, "Wow, look at the LTV to CAC. It's amazing." But usually that's what happens, right? And it's a product first view based on an insight of a potential perceived pain. Now, 8 out of 10 of these don't make it out of the gate. Like it's not, the pain is obviously not big enough to warrant more funding and such. But 2 out of 10 are great, and they really hit on. I mean, these are smart founders, a lot of them, and they find a pain that's actually pretty big. And they put it on the website. You can do a free trial, or you can download for free. It's pretty easy, and you start getting data on people who are starting to sign up, and the word of mouth effect is something that is extremely. You have to have lived in Silicon Valley to understand what that means, and this is something that I think different globally. But boy, technology that come out of Silicon Valley, that word of mouth effect is very strong. And so if you got something, it will go viral pretty quickly. And you can start seeing people starting to sign up. And then usually it's for one particular pain that you think you're solving. But the reality is the market is going to find your solution actually solves a number of different kinds of problems that you don't even know about. And so this is where I think it's super interesting. Once you get to a certain scale, right? Let's say you get into single digit millions in an ACV, or maybe in terms of customers, I don't know. Once you get into like maybe over 1,000, let's call it, you get over 1,000 customers, you have enough information now, right, to just look across and just do an analysis of like, hey, what kinds of companies are these? And it'll take like 2 hours, okay? Because a lot of these will be like SMBs, and you can't just like run data, and match and stuff. But you can start inferring what type of companies are getting value from your product, and to solve what pain. That second part is very, very important. A lot of companies kind of miss that. But if you're in a freemium model, just looking at which company uses you doesn't tell you anything, because usually it's a small team solving a small pain within a bigger company. So you got to pick up the phone or do a survey, and you understand. At some point, you're like, okay, it makes sense. I have some hypotheses on where I have great product market fit, and it's a big market, and I have a differentiated way to continue to double down on this pain and do it in a differentiated way. Mm-hmm. Then I would start adding humans to the process. So the first piece I love is always inbound sales, or inbound chat, or inbound support, whatever. Basically, get some humans in there to test your hypotheses. Right, you got some data now. You kind of know, hey, maybe government is where the sweet spot is in solving this type of thing. Okay, great. So then hire 1 or 2 inbound salespeople, and their job is to do a couple things. One, for the companies that you've identified to be kind of like in the middle of your bullseye, call them up, build a relationship, and you'll see that there's probably some good expansion opportunity right away. Second, because the word of mouth dynamic should be pretty strong, right? If it's strong, if it's not strong, you got to go back to the well, right, and go back to the whiteboard. But if it is strong, you should be getting a reasonable amount of traffic on the website, right? It's not going to be like thousands of leads every day, but maybe like 10 a week in the beginning, right? You want to man them. You got to take advantage of each one of them, validate your hypotheses. Obviously, try to close a deal as well. But that's, to me, revenue is secondary. And I do see this in a lot of management. They hire like one salesperson, and they're like, "Here's your quota," and that's, if that is your primary objective for that person, you're not going to get the insights that you really want. And the insights are way more valuable. So like your first couple of salespeople, I think like you really drive the people to get you the insights of like, hey, where's the sweet spot? What kind of pain are we solving, right? What are the additional pains that we could solve? That is more valuable than whatever 20K MRR that you're going to get. So do that. And at a certain point, you start getting, you're going to have to improve. Mainly you take that feedback, work with product to really improve or expand the problem that you're solving and make it excellent, right? All right, then that should bring in more people. And at some point, you can start building out the team more, and then you can start segmenting more. And eventually, you can start going outbound. And outbound, I would put it in quotes. What does outbound mean? Does it mean like you're just like traditional outbound and LinkedIn outbound? I mean, you are the expert here, so, right? This is like, okay, I'm going to create opportunities. You figure out your persona. You know who you're targeting. You get them on the phone. Although people don't do phones anymore. People don't even do emails now. I don't even know. Like now people are like sending books around. I don't know. But you find a way to get in there. You prospect. Yeah, that is traditional outbound. I think freemium outbound, you have something kind of in between, whereby you can go after companies that you already have some traction, and let's say they're healthier, right? Those are essentially your leads for an enterprise play. And I'm a big believer that if you can't even drive big expansion deals where you've already landed, maybe it could be small land, but if you can't even drive some big expansion there, you got no business to go, let's call it true outbound, right? So you know what? Go outbound in accounts that you already have landed to some degree. And that motion, by the way, is not easy, right? You're at Nike, you're trying to get into Nike, and you got like 50 people, super fans, love Asana, and they want to use and they're really happy, and you're like, okay, well, how do I navigate that organization, right? It's hard, but so there's a craft, there's a different art and science to how you go about doing that. You got to get that motion down first. Kind of the process that goes through my mind.
Nice, awesome. And so let's say that you get to that phase, and you're going to start building out your sales engine. You're going to start building out your team of humans. What are the first few phases you go through and steps you take in order to do that?
So the way I think about it is you got to first understand what are the selling motions that you want to build. And I think this depends company by company. But like for me now, there's a selling motion. It's not really selling like with humans, but like just growth optimizations, right? How does your website convert? That is a motion that you're gonna have to get good at. So I organize a team around that. I have a team called online sales, which basically like uses a lot of data process automation to intelligently know which are the teams that likely came in through a self-serve funnel that have a high propensity to close or expand. That's another selling motion. That's very different. We talked about that enterprise expansion play. How do you go after companies where you've already landed and then you want to expand? That's another motion. So I think depending on the company, you got to go. This is pretty, I think, more first principles, right? You got to understand like which are the motions that you really, really need to develop, and you basically organize and start developing these teams to start building out those practices. And then as you do that, you can kind of reallocate resources depending on which ones are doing better and not. But I think the critical piece here is you need to be able to articulate and identify what is the motion that you want to build.
Yeah, good one. And then last one, and then we'll wrap. You've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it, OJ. Thank you. Now, you just talked a little bit about your org and how you structure it, and you kind of just went through a few different motions that almost map very closely to the same org that you were just talking about. So within each one of the self-serve, online sales, enterprise sales, BD, and strategic partnerships, can you give us one or two things that you absolutely have to nail, or one or two best practices you absolutely have to think about if you're going to nail each one of those? Maybe we can start with self-serve first.
Sure. Self-serve, number one thing, you got to get cross-functional alignment. This is you talk to many growth teams. This is where it falls behind. This goes back to my earlier comment about you got to find a team that actually works as a team, because that self-serve business touches upstream acquisitions. I mean, you can even go more upstream with branding. So brand to acquisitions to conversion, a funnel to the actual adoption of a product in the first 30 days. That's the self-serve business. And then eventually, and also retention. So it touches everything. And so if you don't have a cross-functional alignment, you can forget about it. Literally forget about it. Don't even waste time, because most companies are so small where like you really need the whole full funnel to work together. Otherwise, you're not going to move the needle. So that's number one in the self-serve business. You got to get that alignment. You got to get that commitment, and that's hard. Sales, like you need to spend before you even build it. You got to spend a significant amount of time and energy to align with all the other functions around the company. That, hey, do you all agree this is an important practice to build? And if so, this is how we're going to build it and how we're going to work together. Otherwise, not worth it. That is
self-serve.
That is self-serve. Online sale. So this is kind of high velocity inside sales that sits on top of self-service. A lot of this is depending on whether you have the systems and operations and data science to support that kind of velocity, right? Like our online sales teams, each person closes above $1 million per person. That's a tremendous kind of when we talk about LTV CAC. That is, can't beat that.
That's really good.
It's real good. But you can only do that if you have and they're going after SMB mid-market, right? You can only do that if you have really good automation, data science that kind of picks out which are the leads and contacts that you should invest your time in, and you get a bigger deal, right? Each rep, let's say each rep closes about 20 deals a month, right? And so it's not like a ton of deals. You got to really, really make them count to retire that kind of money. And so making sure you have invested in the ops and the systems and the tooling to make that efficiency work is something that I think most companies underestimate. I continually underestimate, actually. I thought I'm ahead of the game, and then a month later I'm like, I'm still behind. So having that platform, thinking about that business as a platform, super important. Enterprise, for freemium businesses, I think the most important thing to tease out as a leader is understanding how much of the revenue is actually driven by the reps versus how much revenue probably would have come in anyways.
That's
a lot of companies have this problem where the enterprise reps essentially just piggyback and put their name tied to an organic expansion that likely would have happened anyways. Now, so that's where I think people need to spend some time thinking about it, because that's not scalable.